I'm 46, and my name's Mark. I'm the kind of dad who never made a fuss, never stood in the way, never made Father's Day about me. I'm the ex-husband who didn't drag out the divorce, who didn't badmouth the new guy, who quietly stepped back when my son's mom remarried and her new husband started showing up to school events and parent-teacher nights like he'd been there all along. I never wanted to be the kind of man who turned his kid into a battlefield. So I paid my part, and then some, without keeping score. For the last 2 years, I've been covering my son Ryan's tuition. $2,000 a month, direct wire, paid in full to the university bursar's office from a separate account. No questions asked. He never even knew it was me. His mother had convinced me it would be easier for him that way, that it would avoid emotional confusion. She said letting him believe the tuition came from her and her husband would help him feel more secure. Stable, she called it. I didn't want to mess with that. I just wanted my son to succeed. So I said yes, like I always do. Ryan just finished his sophomore year. He's 19 now. Bright kid, sharp, good with numbers, better with people. He wants to go into finance, or at least he used to. We don't talk as much as we used to. Our conversations have become more polite, brief, measured. Like he's not sure how to act around me anymore. Like he's afraid he might be betraying someone else by being too warm with me. I chalked it up to adolescence and time apart. I figured he'd come around. That someday, the quiet consistency would matter more than the dramatic gestures. I never bought him cars or flew him to Cancun like his stepfather did. But I showed up. I always showed up. Which is why Father's Day this year hit me harder than I expected. It was one of those humid June Sundays, sun blazing just a little too harshly on the front lawns and grilling dads everywhere. I texted Ryan the day before to see if he wanted to grab lunch. He told me they had plans as a family, but maybe we could do something later in the week. I understood. At least, I thought I did. That's what I told myself when I took the afternoon to clean the garage and listen to an old Cubs game on the radio just to keep the silence from feeling too loud. Around 4 p.m., I got a message from an old neighbor, Mrs. Cole, sweet lady, lives 3 houses down from my ex-wife and her husband. She sent me a video. Thought you might want to see this, she wrote, with one of those awkward smiley emojis older folks use when they're not sure if it softens the blow. It was a clip from their backyard. A Father's Day barbecue. Everyone looked happy. There was my ex laughing over a pitcher of sangria. Her husband, Tim, loud, tan, and always wearing those fitted polos, stood at the center of attention, flipping burgers like some suburban king. Ryan stepped forward, holding a small box. I turned up the volume. My hands were already shaking. Here, he said, I got you this. Tim opened it. A Rolex. Real or fake? I couldn't tell. Didn't matter. The crowd gasped. Ryan grinned and said, You've always been more of a dad than he ever was. And then everyone laughed. They laughed. I don't remember watching the rest of the clip. I don't even remember putting down my phone. I just sat there for a while, feeling like my chest had been hollowed out. I thought about the calls I'd made to financial aid officers, the bills I'd silently paid, the groceries I used to drop off when his mom said money was tight. I thought about the homemade cards from when he was little, the bedtime stories, the late-night drives to pick him up from school when he forgot his backpack or missed the bus. And somehow, all of that felt like it had evaporated in the space of one sentence. One sentence and a watch. I didn't cry. Not yet. I don't know if it was rage or heartbreak, but something snapped. I opened my laptop and pulled up the tuition account. 2 clicks. Cancel automatic payments. 1 more click. Notify university of sponsor withdrawal. I didn't even leave a note. Just hit confirm and close the screen. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't disappearing quietly into the background. Monday went by in a blur. Tuesday too. I figured someone would say something. I expected a text, maybe from my ex, something passive-aggressive, something that danced around the issue. But nothing came. Not until this morning. My phone started buzzing at 7:43 a.m., waking me up before my alarm. Ryan. I ignored the first call. Then came the second. And the third. By the fourth, I picked up, heart pounding in a way I hadn't felt in years. His voice was shaky. Dad, what did you do? I blinked, still groggy. What do you mean? The university said my tuition payment stopped. They said the sponsor canceled. I'm not enrolled for next semester. They said I'd have to reapply for aid or pay out of pocket before Friday, or I'm dropped from all my courses. Did you cancel it? Why would you do that? I didn't answer right away. I wanted to scream, but my voice came out calm. Too calm. I saw the video, Ryan. Silence. Then a soft, hesitant, What video? The one where you gave Tim a watch and told him he's more of a dad than I ever was. He didn't speak. I could hear him breathing on the other end. Panicked. Processing. I never wanted recognition, I said. I just wanted you to succeed. But maybe it's time the man who raised you so well picked up the tab, too. Dad, please, he said, his voice cracking. I didn't mean it like that. It was a joke. Everyone was laughing. I didn't think. No, I cut in. You didn't. And then I hung up. That was an hour ago. Now I'm sitting here, coffee going cold in my hands, watching my phone buzz every few minutes with new messages. Some from Ryan. Some from his mother. One from Tim, of all people, asking if I could act like an adult and not take things out on my son. That one almost made me laugh. Almost. I haven't responded yet, but I will. Just not yet. Because for once, I want them to sit with the silence. To feel what I've felt. Every birthday missed. Every memory rewritten. Every thank you swallowed. I want them to realize that not all wounds leave scars on the outside. And not all fathers wear watches. And that's when the doorbell rings. I check the camera. It's Ryan. Standing on my porch. Face pale. Eyes wide. Hands shaking. But I don't move. Not yet. He stood there for a while, glancing down at his phone, then up at the doorbell camera, then back at his phone like he wasn't sure what he was supposed to say, or maybe like he was rehearsing it all in his head. I could tell he wanted to knock, but didn't. Just stood there, fidgeting with the sleeves of his hoodie. That same gray one he wore all the time in high school. I hadn't seen it in years. He looked smaller in it now. Like the weight of everything was finally starting to settle. I let him wait. Not out of spite, at least, not entirely. But because I needed the moment. I needed him to need it. For once, I wasn't going to chase him down or make it easier. Let him stand in the silence. Let him earn his way in. After 7 minutes, yes, I watched the clock. I opened the door. Hey, he said softly. I didn't respond. Just leaned against the frame, arms crossed. He cleared his throat. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, like the living room was unfamiliar territory. Like he didn't know where to sit anymore. He hovered near the couch, but didn't sit. Just stood with his hands deep in his hoodie pockets and his eyes fixed on the floor. I messed up, he said. I know that. I stayed quiet. Let him keep going. I didn't mean what I said at the party. Not really. It was loud, and people were watching, and I thought it would make Tim feel good. And everyone laughed, so I thought. I don't know. I wasn't thinking about you. I looked at him, searching his face for sincerity. Not guilt. Not panic. Truth. You didn't think about me, I repeated. He looked up. No. And that's the worst part. You've done everything for me. You were there when Mom wasn't. When Tim wasn't. When no one was. But you didn't say that, I said, keeping my tone flat. You said he was more of a dad than I ever was. He winced. I know. There was a long pause. He sat down on the edge of the couch, like he didn't feel he had permission to sink in. And maybe he didn't. Not yet. They told me the university's going to cancel everything. My schedule, my housing, my scholarship interviews. I can't get new aid in time, and Mom said they can't afford the payments right now. Tim said maybe I should take a semester off. But that means I lose my spot. I raised my eyebrows. And he blinked. And I'm scared. I worked hard for this. I've done everything I was supposed to. I tilted my head slightly. Except remember who helped you get there. He swallowed hard. I didn't forget. I guess I took it for granted. That word, granted. Like all those nights I stayed up late going over loan paperwork, or those early mornings taking freelance projects just to keep that tuition fund full, were some inevitable given. Like fathers are supposed to be invisible benefactors. Quiet hands that sign checks but never need to be seen. I let the silence stretch. Then I asked, what do you think it means to be a father? He looked confused for a second. I guess, being there. Providing. Protecting. Teaching. Loving. Even when you're ignored? He nodded. Even when someone else gets the credit? He hesitated, then nodded again. Yeah. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on my knees. That's what I did. For 19 years. And I never asked for praise. Never asked for gifts. I just wanted to be your dad. Not your friend. Not your ATM. Just your dad. But I needed to believe it meant something. Even if you didn't say it out loud. Even if it was just a look or a thanks now and then. I needed to know I wasn't invisible. His face cracked then. Like something inside him finally gave way. I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. I messed up. I messed everything up. Tears welled in his eyes. Real ones. Not panic over tuition. Not fear of losing school. But shame. Regret. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote this. Last night, after you hung up. He handed it to me with shaking hands. I opened it slowly. It was a letter. Handwritten. The first line said, "To the man I owe more than I can ever repay." I didn't read the rest aloud. I didn't need to. The gesture was enough for now. I folded it gently and set it on the coffee table. "Do you think an apology fixes everything?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Work off the tuition. Help out. Be there. Just, please don't walk away from me." I stared at him for a long time. Let him sit in that vulnerability. Then, finally, I said, "It's not about the money, Ryan. It never was. It's about knowing I matter." "You do," he said, without hesitation. I believed him, but I wasn't ready to make it easy. "Go home," I said. "Let me think." He looked disappointed but nodded. "Okay." He stood, hesitated again, then reached out and hugged me. I didn't hug him back. Not yet. But I didn't pull away either. After he left, I picked up the letter and read every word. The whole thing. Then I sat there in the quiet, heart pounding. Because now I had a choice to make. One that wasn't about money or revenge, but about whether a father's love should ever come with a price. And right as I was about to make up my mind, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was from my ex. And her message? "Mark, we need to talk. Now." I stared at the screen, and then everything changed. I didn't respond right away. For a second, I just stared at the message. The nerve. "We need to talk?" After 2 years of letting me be the invisible hand writing the checks, after her backyard wine and laugh show where I got reduced to a punchline, I locked my phone and set it face down. But of course, it buzzed again. And again. Then a third time. This time a call. I watched her name flash on the screen for a moment. Then I answered. "Mark," she said before I could get a word in, her voice tight and controlled. Too controlled. "I just found out what you did. You canceled Ryan's tuition." I didn't answer immediately. I let her words hang there, suspended in the air between us like a courtroom charge. She pressed again. "He's panicking. He's talking about dropping out. Why didn't you tell us you were planning to stop paying?" "I didn't plan to stop," I said evenly. "I plan to keep paying. Right up until I watched that little video of yours." There was a pause, sharp, tense. She tried to recover. "That wasn't about you, Mark. You're overreacting. You're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be." I almost laughed. "A bigger deal? My son told another man, in front of your entire family, that I was never really his dad, that I was just some distant afterthought. And you think the issue is me making a big deal?" She sighed, one of those drawn-out, exasperated sighs that always meant I'm done pretending I care what you think. "Look," she said, "Tim's been here every day for years. He shows up. He's a good stepfather. Ryan was trying to show appreciation. You weren't even invited to the barbecue." "Exactly," I cut in. "Because you made sure I wouldn't be." Her voice changed then. Lowered. Defensive. "You chose your distance, Mark. You always wanted it quiet. Hands off. You didn't want to be the every weekend dad. You said so yourself." "I didn't want to compete," I replied. "That's different. I didn't want Ryan stuck in a loyalty tug-of-war. So I backed off, paid my part, and hoped that eventually, I'd still have a place in his life that mattered." "You do matter," she said, but her tone sounded thin now, like she didn't quite believe it. I let a beat pass. "Then why lie about the tuition?" Silence. "Why let him believe you were paying it? Why not just tell him the truth? You and Tim have enough money to throw backyard parties with Rolexes, but you still let me cover the school bills? That's not just insulting. That's calculated." Finally, she said the quiet part out loud. "Because you're better at that stuff. The money stuff. Tim doesn't like to. He thinks college should be Ryan's responsibility. He offered to help if Ryan needed it, but not like you. You've always been more consistent. More willing to be invisible," I said, the words hitting harder than I expected. She didn't reply. Then I heard her voice change again, this time with a sharper edge. "So what now? Are you going to punish Ryan because you're hurt? Are you really willing to ruin his future over a dumb comment?" My jaw clenched. "No," I said slowly, "but I am done being used." There was another pause, this one longer. Then came the real reason she'd called. "Well, what would it take for you to reinstate the payments?" I felt something turn in my stomach. There it is. The transactional offer. Not, "Let's talk as co-parents." Not, I understand how you feel. Just straight to the bartering. Like I was some grumpy shareholder they needed to appease. I don't think you understand, I said. This isn't about the money. Not anymore. But it's your son, Mark. I let those words sit. And then, without meaning to, I whispered, you never let him be mine. Not really. She tried again, more impatient now. So what? Are you just gonna watch him lose his education? Are you seriously okay with that? I didn't answer. Because truthfully, I didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted more, vindication or reconciliation. I just knew I was tired of being the only one who cared quietly. I need time, I said finally. And before she could speak again, I ended the call. That was 10 minutes ago. Since then, I've gotten 4 more messages. 1 from her, 1 from Ryan, 2 from Tim, both unread. I keep staring at that letter Ryan gave me, the one sitting on my coffee table. I reread the opening line again, trying to decide if he meant it, or if it was just a strategic play, a kid trying to patch things up because his safety net vanished. But then I remembered the way he looked at me before he left. Not desperate, ashamed, and I keep coming back to that. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But just as I'm about to get up, there's a knock on the door again. Not the doorbell this time, just 2 slow knocks. And when I open it, it's not Ryan. It's Tim, and he's holding a check. You made your point, he says. But I just stare, because the last thing I expected was him showing up. And what he says next changes everything. Tim standing on my porch was the last thing I expected. He looked uncomfortable, out of place, like a man showing up to a chess match 3 moves too late. His usual smugness wasn't there. No tight smirk, no arrogant posture, just a tight grip on the envelope in his hand and the unmistakable twitch of someone who's finally realized the foundation beneath him is starting to crack. You made your point, he said again, as if that alone could sweep up the mess and put everything back where it belonged. I leaned against the doorway. Did I? He cleared his throat. Look, I know we haven't exactly seen eye to eye, but this thing with Ryan, it's getting out of hand. I raised my eyebrow. Did it get out of hand before or after you let him stand in your yard and say I was never his father? He hesitated. It was just a joke. I shook my head slowly. No, it was the truth dressed up as a punchline. And everyone laughed because that truth made you feel like a bigger man. Tim shifted his weight from one foot to the other. I didn't ask him to say it. I didn't know he would. But you didn't stop him either, I said. You stood there and smiled like a man accepting an award you didn't earn. He went quiet. The tension hung between us like thick humidity. Finally, he held out the envelope. It's a check. 5 grand. I know it doesn't cover everything, but it's something toward the tuition. I figured maybe it'd help. I didn't take it. Is that what this is? You're trying to buy my silence now. No, he said quickly. I'm trying to fix things. I didn't come here to fight. I came here because Ryan's falling apart. He's not sleeping. He's barely talking. He thinks you hate him. I crossed my arms. I don't hate him. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. He knows that now, Tim said. He knows he messed up. But he's still a kid, Mark. You and I both know what 19-year-old boys are like. Cocky, stupid, and half aware of how much they actually don't know. That made me pause. Because deep down, I knew he wasn't wrong. Tim looked me in the eye. You've been a better father to him than I ever could be. I may have played the part, but you were the one keeping everything afloat behind the curtain. I see that now. Ryan sees it too. I finally took the envelope, but I didn't open it. You really believe that? I asked. He nodded. I do. I stepped aside and let him in. Not because I forgave him, but because sometimes the bigger move is letting the other side squirm a little in your own house. Tim sat awkwardly on the far edge of the couch, the same spot Ryan had sat in hours before. I took my time making coffee, poured him a mug, slid it across the table. It sat untouched. I never wanted to take your place, he said. I just filled a gap when I thought it needed to be filled. But I didn't realize how much damage that did. You didn't just fill a gap, I said. You helped create it. He winced. Fair. I looked down at the check, opened the envelope. $5,000, signed. Real money, not a symbolic gesture. Still, I folded it back up. Keep it. He blinked. What? You're not paying your way out of this, I said. If Ryan wants to make this right, it has to come from him, not you. Tim nodded slowly. All right. I walked him to the door, and as he stepped outside, he paused. For what it's worth, he said, I always admired how you handled things. You could have made this whole situation a mess years ago, but you didn't. I didn't reply. He left, and for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't being erased anymore. The next morning, I got a text from Ryan. It was just one sentence. Can I come over after class? I want to talk. No excuses. Just the truth. I replied, doors open. He showed up around 5. No hoodie this time. Just jeans and a plain shirt, backpack slung over his shoulder, and a serious look in his eyes. We sat across from each other again, this time with less silence. I'm not here to ask you to pay again, he said immediately. I'm here because I need to make things right. Go on, I said. I went to the financial aid office today, he continued. They gave me forms to reapply. I'm going to try and get coverage through work study and loans. I know it won't be easy, but I want to earn it now. I don't want to hide behind you anymore. I studied him. There was no performance in his voice. No kid trying to game the system. Just a young man finally owning the weight of his mistakes. And if you can't get the funding in time? I asked. I'll defer a semester, he said. Get a job, work, save, and come back stronger. I'd rather do that than keep taking things for granted. I sat back. I never needed you to pay me back, Ryan. I just needed to know I wasn't disposable. I know, he said, voice cracking a little. And I'm sorry I made you feel that way. No one else has ever shown up for me the way you have. I just didn't see it. But I do now. And I won't forget it again. This time, when he hugged me, I hugged him back. Not out of obligation. Not out of guilt. But because that hug didn't feel like it was coming from a kid who wanted something. It came from a son who finally understood who his father really was. A month later, Ryan secured enough aid to stay enrolled. It wasn't easy, and he had to work weekends at a hardware store near campus, but he handled it. I offered to help again, he declined. Not out of pride, but because he wanted to earn the rest of his path. He still comes over on Sundays now. No Rolexes, no gifts, no big announcements. Just coffee, conversation, and laughter. Last week, he brought a photo album he made from when he was a kid. Old pictures I hadn't seen in years. On the cover, he'd written, "For the only dad who ever showed up." I didn't need a holiday or an award. I just needed that. And this Father's Day, he didn't buy me a watch. He bought me breakfast and said, "Thanks for being the reason I got this far." That was enough. Finally,